Here we go.
I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I haven't recovered from what happened to my Dallas Cowboys on Monday night, and I don't think I ever quite will. But I have no choice. I've got to forge ahead here. Even though if you watched me live on my YouTube channel right after the game on Monday night, you saw a different me. I was struggling to get the words out because I was so devastated, so demoralized, so flat out depressed over what I just witnessed at the very moment I wasn't ready to witness it. I just couldn't compute it. I couldn't internalize it enough to externalize it for you live, raw and real. I was, for the first time in my career, having trouble getting the words to actually come out. I usually get angry about Cowboy losses, but this was different. This was just weirdly sad. The Cowboys don't lose that way. They lose, but they lose spectacularly. Not that way. Not at that moment. I mean, for me, the big, bad, spectacular Cowboy moments in history, I'm going way back because I'm lifelong diehard. Jackie Smith dropped a little pop pass from Roger Staubach in Super Bowl 13 that my Cowboys lost 35-31 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were just a little bit better. But if Jackie Smith, a Hall of Fame tight end, he had just come over from St. Louis to the Cowboys for the first year, it just hits him right in the hands, and it just went right through his hands in the end zone, and we lost 35-31. That's losing spectacularly, even on the Dak level. Dak Prescott failing to get down as the clock 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 against San Francisco in that home playoff game in early 2022, so we didn't get a last shot at a last play. He literally ran the clock out. That's losing big. That's losing spectacularly. I mean, yeah, Leon Lett in the first Jimmy Jerry Super Bowl out here in the LA area in Pasadena, what was it, Super Bowl 27? Yeah, Leon Lett has the ball in his hands, a gigantic defensive tackle, running for a touchdown, and Don Beebe strips him from behind. We were winning 52-17. It was more funny than sad. It was just crazy funny. Leon Lett got stripped from behind. And then we fast forward to the next year, the 93 season. The Cowboys were clearly the best team. And they're playing on Thanksgiving against the Miami Dolphins in the snow. So it's a weird snow game. It never snows in Dallas during the football season. And it snowed as early as Thanksgiving Day in Dallas, Texas. It's impossible. And further impossible was that Leon Lett touched a blocked field goal. Live ball, Miami recovers, Miami kicks field goal. We lose. But we're on the way to winning a back-to-back Super Bowl. I can live with that. You got to understand my emotions. On Monday, all day long, I felt so good about this game. I predicted that my Cowboys were going to win this game against Joe Burrow and the sliding Bengals. We actually had a better record. We were 5-7. They were 4-8. And I'm thinking, tonight, we rise from the ashes. Dallas Cowboys don't ever rise from the ashes, but that's what we were about to do because we had won 2 in a row, and I was convinced we were going to beat the Bengals and win 5 in a row more to go 7 in a row to close the season. I was convinced we were going to go 10-7 and be the shock of the NFL season. We were going to come back to life when everybody had dead and buried us. It was all right there on a metallic silver platter for us. I just saw it coming. I knew it was going to happen. I can't tell you how confident I was all day long. but we were rising from the ashes because we had suffered something no Cowboy team, heck, no team in NFL history had ever suffered. We had lost 5 straight home games going back earlier in the season and then going back to the last game of last season, starting with that Green Bay playoff game. And then do I need to detail these for you? It was New Orleans at home in the home opener. It was Baltimore at home. It was Detroit at home. It was the Eagles at home. It was one after the other. We got blown off the field in 5 straight home games. No team had ever suffered 5 straight home nightmare defeats, blowout losses, the way we had. You can go all the way back. You want to go to ancient NFL history. No team at home had ever been blown off the home field 5 straight times the way my Cowboys had. And how that wasn't a fireable offense for please drop the mic McCarthy is beyond me. It screamed fire the head coach. But no, we stumbled forward. And Dak went down. God bless him. I'll knock on wood for Dak to recover as quickly as he can from his terrible hamstring injury. But you know how much I used to love Cooper Rush back in 2021, 2022. He was extraordinary. And I thought, okay, now we got Cooper Rush back in the saddle. Here we go. We're taking off. We won a miraculous game at Washington against our arch rivals. I still don't know exactly how we did it, but we did it. And we took care of business for what it was worth against the New York Football Giants on Thanksgiving at Jerry World. We actually won a home game at Jerry World. And I said, here we go. Back in business. Happy days are here again. And then Cooper Rush. I don't know what's happened. This is the most shocking thing that's happened the whole football season to me is that Cooper Rush turned back into an undrafted free agent that he once was. In 2022, he was so good that on CBS, former Dallas Cowboy quarterback Tony Romo said, and I quote, Cooper Rush is going to get a whole lot of money on the free agent market because he was that good. He had won that game at Minnesota on Sunday night in 2021, throwing a late clutch touchdown pass to Amari Cooper, a walk-off. And then 2022, Dak goes down in game number 1, and in game 2 against Joe Burrow at Jerry World, Joe Burrow on Sunday Night Football, Cooper Rush had a QBR of 86, that scale 0 to 100, to Joe Burrow's 57. He flat out outplayed him and clutched up in the end with 3 big completions in the last minute of the game to set up a walk-off field goal. And I thought, deja vu, baby, we're back. Because it was set up to happen exactly the same way on Monday night. But I must admit, through the second half, Cooper Rush turned into Cooper Hush, as in hush, Skip. Just quit talking about this guy. He's just some guy. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he's hurt. He lost his confidence. He lost his way. And he struggled through the second half as my defense suddenly rose and shone in ways it hasn't all season long. I mean, here was the point. Joe Burrow threw a party on us in the first half. He threw for 207 because he's the best quarterback in football. I've been telling you that for 5 years. He's in a league of his own, above Mahomes and Lamar and Josh Allen, you name him. He is the best thrower of Matt Stafford. I'll throw him in there. But Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in pro football, and he showed you that in the first half, in part because he has a guy who made a case for being the best receiver in Jamar Chase on Monday night. But the point was that 207 shrank shockingly in the second half, because in the second half, we held Joe Burrow to barely over 100 yards passing until that last drive. I'll get to that in a moment. But the point was that Cooper Rush wasn't living up, but we were hanging in. The same Cooper Rush, remember, he played one great quarter this year when he got thrown into the fire in Atlanta as we were losing. Dak went down. In came Cooper Rush for the whole fourth quarter. Cooper Rush threw for 115 yards just in the fourth quarter alone. He threw 2 touchdown passes that were dropped. One to CD because he banged up his shoulder and he couldn't even lift his arm and hit him right in the hands at the goal line. He dropped it, or the 115 could have been much more. Jalen Tolbert just had a ball off his fingertips because he's just not very good. I don't know why they keep playing him. He's just another guy. JAG, as Bill Parcells once said. So even though Cooper Rush continued to struggle in the second half, here we came. And then I got deflated. Poor DeMarvion Overshown. I mean, it happened again. And I'm just crushed for the kid because he's such a good football player. Heat-seeking missile. And all of a sudden, he turned into unlucky number 13 again. We lost him for his whole rookie year with one knee injury, and now the other knee got shredded because he got rolled up on. 3 different ligaments tore. It was just pathetic. And it just shook me, and I thought, oh, God, the defense is just going to collapse now. But it didn't. It rose, and it shone. I don't know what happened, but we played the best defense we played in like 3 years against Joe Burrow. And we pushed him back into 4th and 27 at the 29-yard line. Think of this. How do you push Joe Burrow back into 4th and 27 at the 29-yard line? Nobody does that to Joe Burrow, and we did it. And it's the 2-minute warning, and I'm thinking, we're going to get the ball in great field position because I'm just hoping the Cincinnati punter mishits it a little bit and that Turpentine gets a hold of it and maybe gets 20 or 30 on a return, and all of a sudden we're going to be right there in Brandon Aubrey field goal range. And just the way Brett Maher walked it off against Cincinnati on September the 18th of 2022, we're going to do it again right before your very eyes on the big solo stage. Monday Night Football, we're going to do it again. Here we come. And you know what happened. I say you know, but I don't know. Okay, so we come out of the 2-minute warning, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the big kick return. And we block the punt, except we didn't really block it. We only tipped it. It wasn't the double thud of ball off foot, ball off hand, thud. We didn't get the double thud because double thuds go backwards. They bounce toward your goal line. You go recover it down at the 15-yard line, and you've got a chip shot walk-off field goal after you run a few plays and kill the clock. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen because the kick was only tipped. The punt was only tipped, and it goes up in the air forward, which can't happen. It's a block punt going forward, and then it hits on its nose, and it skyrockets up the field the wrong direction. It skyrockets, and it picks up momentum as it bounces. And I'm saying, my eyes can't process what's happening because the ball is picking up speed on a blocked punt going the wrong direction toward us. And out of nowhere, poor Amani Oruwariye, out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, he's just been activated. He just joined the Cowboys back in the early season. He's first activated in October, then he came off the injured list. I don't know. I didn't even know who he was. I vaguely knew the name. It's a long story because he was once recruited to go to my school, Vanderbilt, so I knew his name, but he's bounced around to, 5 different NFL teams, and I didn't even know he was on the roster, and most Cowboy fans don't. And so, once again, we lose spectacularly. I needed, if we're going to lose a game, we need CD to fumble or Micah to jump off sides on a crucial 4th down. That's how the Cowboys lose spectacularly, and you say, same old Cowboys. That's the way it goes for them. What can go wrong will go wrong. But this is losing little. This isn't losing big. This is Amani Oruwariye out of nowhere. Nobody even knows his name. It's a forgettable player losing forgettably because he reaches out and tries to snare the football that's bouncing wildly, picking up momentum toward him. I don't crush him. I don't condemn him. He just reacted the way a lot of humans would react, sort of instinctively, thoughtlessly. Obviously, you can't touch the football. If you do and you don't control it, it's a live football. It's a live grenade. And it just sort of rockets right through his hands. And yet, if he hadn't touched it, it's got momentum. We're still going to get the ball maybe at the 50-yard line, maybe at the 50, and we're going to be okay. And I'm out of my mind because he did touch the football and we did lose the football back to them, and our defense was so shell-shocked, it has to run right back on the field. And I just said to myself, we are done, because we're not going to recover psychologically from this, because who could? And Joe Burrow goes 7-yard gain, 10-yard gain, and then Jamar Chase runs an out route. Deron Bland overplays it, and he's gone. And he basically Deion's into the end zone. 40 yards, touchdown. We lose 27-20. And I go from happy days are here again to here we go again, and there we went. I thought we were going to win out. I thought we were going to go win at Carolina and beat Tampa on Monday night, which we're highly capable of doing. I thought we'd go win at the Eagles because maybe they wouldn't be as motivated as you'd think, because they would have won so many games in a row. We always play Philly tough at Philly. And then we were going to beat Washington at home. I just knew we were, because we'd just beaten Washington at Washington. And now everything collapsed. We went from rising from the ashes to the ashes again. We are the ashes. We lost forgettably, thanks to a forgettable player. And now all I have left is to root for Trey Lance to come in and show us that he is that guy that I thought he was before San Francisco gave 3 firsts and a third to draft him, to go up to get him. The Shanahans went up and got him. He needs to turn back into that guy, and he needs to start Sunday at Carolina, where we're 2.5-point underdogs at Carolina. Yep, it came to this for my Cowboys. And I had to suffer through, even though I told you I was ready. If we won out and went 10-7, I don't even know if that would make it into the playoffs. Probably it would, but you never know. You'd need help. But if we had won out and gone 10-7 and played a playoff game, I said, okay, then bring back Mike McCarthy, because that's an achievement enough coming up from the ashes of the early season to do that. I'd say, okay, I'll sacrifice bringing back Mike McCarthy if you'll give me that, if you'll give me 10-7. But now it's a disaster. It's another lost season, and I'm going to be stuck with Mike McCarthy, because Jerry raved about Mike McCarthy after the game, and Jerry brought up that Mike McCarthy has been endorsed by Troy Aikman publicly, nationally, by Tom Brady publicly, nationally, by Dak Prescott wants him back, by Micah Parsons wants him back. Jerry obviously wants him back. So now I'm going to be stuck with Dak next year, and I'm going to be stuck with Mike Mack next year. Man. Oh, it got dark early for me this year. Okay, I have to talk about the 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs. I've never seen anything like the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, the luckiest team in the history of professional football, and it ain't even close. The Kansas City Chiefs have won 12 games, 7 of the 12 on the last possession. 6 of those 7 at Arrowhead. Nobody is scared of Arrowhead anymore. In fact, you might as well call it Sparrowhead. It's Sparrowhead Stadium for visitors now, because the Chiefs keep winning by the skin of their teeth. I don't even know where that phrase came from, skin of their teeth, but I know exactly what it means. They're just hanging in and barely hanging on for dear life at Sparrowhead Stadium, 6 times on the last possession at Sparrowhead. And I'm here to warn you, Chiefs Kingdom, the genie gave you 7 wishes, but only 7. You're not going to get an 8th or a 9th. You have 7 lives as opposed to the cat with 9 lives. Maybe those cats in Detroit Lions, maybe they have 9 this year, but KC, you've only got 7 lives this year, and you've used them all up. And I am warning you, Chiefs Kingdom, when you do get to your first playoff game, it's probably going to be at home. Well, it's going to be at home. But you're probably going to have 2 home playoff games to get to yet another Super Bowl. I'm warning you, when that happens, you're going to be spit out of luck because you've used up all of your luck. I mean, at home now, your team might as well be made up of Dorothy and Toto and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, you Kansas City Chiefs. That might as well be your home team, because this is staggering to me. Please explain this to me, ladies and gentlemen, in Chiefs Kingdom. The Kansas City Chiefs are 12-1, but in point differential, just how many they've scored versus the opponents, in point differential, they rank 11th in the NFL. So the team that's 12-1, it's hard to go 12-1 in the NFL, is only 11th in the entire league in point differential. And even worse, what is the tell-all stat every year? What is the crucial season-deciding statistic for every NFL team? It never fails. It is turnover differential. And right now, the Kansas City Chiefs at 12-1 rank tied for 22nd in turnover differential at -4. Think about that. They're -4 in turnovers, takeaway, giveaway. -4, that ranks tied for 22nd in the league, yet they're 12-1. It just can't happen unless you're the luckiest team in the history of pro football. Your quarterback, that guy, what's his name, Mahomes, that everybody raves about, he's having yet another, this is back-to-back now, career low season by his standards, and they are high standards. They're all-time great standards, Super Bowl winning standards. He's having another pathetic season. Your quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is now 10th in QBR. Well, it's still top 10-ish, but it's 10th. Well, let me remind you that Patrick Mahomes, here are his QBR ranks in his first 5 years in the league. His first year, 2018, he won QBR. He was first. 2019, he was second. 2020, he was second. 2021, he was fifth, still top 5, and bounced back in 22, first in QBR. So if I do the average of his first 5 years of QBR, he averaged finishing second in QBR for his first 5 years. Last year, Patrick Mahomes finished 8th. This year, at this point, with 4 games to go, he ranks 10th in QBR. His 245 passing yards per game is a career low. All of his stats across the board are career low, including his interceptions. He's 20 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. That ranks 4th in the league. He is getting sacked at a high rate, his highest of his career. He's gone down 35 times. They don't protect him, but he does hold the ball too long because he's trying to do the spectacular the way he used to, and it just ain't there. And his partner in Super Bowl crime, his soulmate, his all-time great connection, Travis Kelce, has a career low 53 yards catching per game, 53 per game. He's only caught 2 touchdown passes. If that stands, that's by far a career low for Travis Kelce. The only way this team is hanging in and hanging on is because this team's defense, they're winning with defense, is 7th in points allowed. So it's top 10, and I'll give you that, but that's all that I will give you. Because let us count the ways of how lucky you have been at home. I'll just hit the highlights or the lowlights, however you want to look at them. Remember the opening game against the Ravens? Opening, what was it, Thursday night at Sparrowhead? 5 seconds left. Lamar, great escapes, pulls off a Las Vegas magic act in the pocket, makes 4 guys miss, bolts forward, flips a little, what looked like touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, back of the end zone, catches it cleanly, feet down, referee's hands go up, touchdown, Likely throws the ball in the stands because we're about to either be tied or the Ravens, I believe, would have gone for 2 and made it because Lamar, that's what he does on big stage, solo stage games, night games. Lamar goes for 2 and makes it, and Ravens upset Chiefs on opening night. That was set to happen until they look at the replay, and clearly Likely's toe was on the line, a la Kevin Durant, if you remember, what was it, 3-4 years back in that playoff game against Milwaukee at Brooklyn. Remember that? KD made that 3, one of the great clutch shots I've ever seen, and his toe, just his toe was barely touching the line. So was Likely's. Game over. Here came the Bengals to Sparrowhead. This is in Kansas City. Bengals are up 2. They push Patrick Mahomes all the way back into 4th and 16 at his 35-yard line. And he goes deep to Rashee Rice. And that 7th-round rookie of the Bengals, that kid Anthony, he just gets there a touch early, just a touch early. And they throw the flag. And it sets up a 51-yard field goal. Harrison Butker, 51 yards, and it's 26-25, luckiest team ever. What? Then here comes Tampa Bay to Sparrowhead. Play the heck out of the Chiefs at home. It goes to overtime, and Baker Mayfield, my guy, goes out to call the coin toss. I say this over and over. You can laugh if you want, but I'm right about this. Even though it's a 50-50 proposition, heads or tails, in overtime, call heads. It's always heads in overtime. It just is. I can't explain it. It's heads. Baker calls tails, and they lose, and Mahomes gets the ball, and you know what happened. 30-24 happened. Here came Denver to Kansas City to Sparrowhead. They have a walk-off chip shot field goal of 35 yards. Will Lutz for the win, blocked. Blocked. Huh? 16-14 Chiefs. Skin of teeth. Luckiest team ever. Then the one game they won this way away was at Carolina against, at that point, the pathetic Panthers. Remember how Mahomes won the game? He tricked them, as he often has. Remember the playoff game against the Titans at Kansas City when he tricked them up the sideline? So he gets loose against the Panthers at Carolina. Looks like he's just going to run out of bounds on the scramble for minimal 3-4 yard gain. Gets to the sideline. I'm giving up. You can't touch Patrick Mahomes. He's untouchable. He's the face of not just the franchise, of the league. No, let him go. Don't, everybody pull up. He takes off again. He deked you. He faked you out. He tricked you. And off he goes for 33 yards up the sideline to set up the walk-off field goal. 31-yard field goal. 30-27, luckiest team ever. Remember the Raider game at Sparrowhead? This happened fairly recently. I watched it. I watch all these games, start to finish. Marvel at the luck. So the Raiders are set up 3rd and 3 at the Kansas City 32. At this point, they've got a 49, 50-yard field goal. It's set up. I was always taught back to my days with Jimmy Johnson, even back to my days with Coach Landry in Dallas. Always, if you have a walk-off field goal, kick it on 3rd down in case something goes wrong. Maybe you get it blocked, but you recover it and you get another crack at it. Just go ahead and kick it. But they get cute. Norvin Scott Turner got cute. They wanted Aiden O'Connell to catch the shotgun snap and, move around, try to kill 4 or 5 more seconds of the clock. There's 15 seconds left. And then just throw it away. And of course, you know what happened. Crowd goes crazy. It's too loud. Ball gets snapped second early. Aiden O'Connell's looking around. He's not ready for it. It hits him, bounces off. Chiefs recover. Luckiest team ever. Survives what would have been a walk-off field goal, and they win 19-17. Then, of course, the Charger game Sunday night. Chargers are up 17-16, and it comes down to pretty short chip shot, 31-yard field goal by somebody named Matt Wright, their third-string kicker. He's been on 15 different teams in the National Football League, 15 different teams, and he smother hooks the chip shot so badly that it doinks off the left upright, but it doinks slightly forward, just forward enough. The carom is just forward enough. It could have gone anyway. That's an oblong ball you're talking about. In Dallas, on Monday night, it rockets forward. Kansas City, Sparrowhead, nope. It moves forward instead of coming backward. It moves forward just enough that it clears the crossbar. And Kansas City survives again, 19-17. What? I'm here to tell you, Buffalo could catch Kansas City for home field, but it's looking doubtful. Chiefs, they still have Houston home. Surely they'll win that game 17-16. They'll go 8-0 at home. They're going to have 2 home games to get to yet another Super Bowl, but it ain't going to happen this time. No more ruby slippers worn by the Kansas City Chiefs, speaking of the Wizard of Oz. No more crazy luck at home this time. When it matters most, Chiefs Kingdom, you will get exposed for what you really are and have been all year. So if you remember, before the season started, a lot of people laughed at me. I said that Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter will go 1-2 or 2-1 in the draft, and that Deion Sanders has turned around that culture in Colorado so quickly and so completely that this team will compete for the conference championship and then compete for the national championship. Laugh all you want, but that's what was happening. I watched every moment of every game because it was such a rare treat. It was such a memorable privilege to watch these players play because you're talking about all-time greatness here. Shedeur's going to be a really, really, really good pro quarterback, and Travis Hunter will go down in NFL history as the greatest two-way player ever because he will play receiver in the NFL. I know it's much harder. It's much more physical. It's much more grinding and grueling on the body. He's just too good not to play receiver, and he's clearly the best cornerback since Deion, since his father figure Deion. I took it hard when the Buffaloes went to Arrowhead and had no luck at Arrowhead because they played Kansas at Arrowhead in a crucial late season game with a chance to be in the Big 12 title game. And they literally got run off the field. I got no excuses for them. They gave up 331 yards rushing to the upstart Jayhawks, who had giant killed BYU, giant killed Iowa State, giant killed Colorado. But then I watched the following week, Senior Day, back in Boulder, and it was glorious. I gloried in it. I basked in it. I marveled at it. What a day that was. Shedeur threw for 438 against Oklahoma State and 5 touchdowns on Senior Day, the last day in Boulder. And Travis Hunter, 10 catches for 116 yards and 3 touchdowns and even picked off a pass to boot. What a day. What a last hurrah. And I'm thinking, that'll be the last we see of these guys as college football players because The next time I see them, they're going to be on an NFL field. And that's when I was pleasantly but fearfully surprised, if not shocked, that Deion said, no, that's not it. We're going to have no opt-outs for the bowl game, the Alamo Bowl against BYU. Everybody's going to play, including Shedeur, including Travis, including Shiloh, Deion's other son on the team, the defensive demon that he is. They're all going to play in the Alamo Bowl. And I'm thinking, really? There's no reason to play. But then it hit me. Deion and Shedeur and Travis and Shiloh are thinking with their hearts, not their heads. And I must admit, the more I thought about it, the more I did love this, because what they're saying is, we want to do this one last great time, because it well could be the last time we're going to share a locker room and a football field together. Deion is staying at Colorado. He's made that infinitely clear. Kickstand is down. Recruits are signed. He loves Boulder. He is bolder than ever in Boulder. He's there. Shedeur's going, I don't know where, to the Giants. I hope not. Travis is going wherever, to Jacksonville. Great. He'll be great wherever he's going, but they don't need to improve their draft stock in a bowl game. I guess you could argue Shedeur could slightly hurt his if he had a miserable game against BYU. I thought Michael Penix hurt his a bit. He had a pretty miserable time against Michigan in the national championship game. I didn't think he was very good, and I didn't think he handled himself very well, but it didn't stop Atlanta from taking him, 8th overall in a shock. But as you know, football is a really dangerous game. And when there's no real reason to play football, to risk football, I'm of a mind, just don't play football. But I can't help but admitting to you, I do love the idea of thinking with your heart instead of your head, that they just want to play with daddy one more time. Obviously, Deion's like a father to Travis and is a father to the other two. And so I'm barely good with that happening, with them playing. I just hope, speaking of the Alamo, that we don't have an Alamo situation, if you know the real history of the Alamo, as in remember the Alamo battle cry. I hope we don't remember the Alamo Bowl in a bad way. Knocking on wood, I don't even like to talk about it. So I'll end this with, even though I do have some concern, I'll never forget what a man named Leroy Jordan once told me. You probably don't remember him unless you're a lifelong diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, as I am. Leroy Jordan was a first-team All-American linebacker for Bear Bryant at Alabama. He was the 6th pick in the draft for my Dallas Cowboys. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler at middle linebacker for Tom Landry's Dallas Cowboys, and he was the leader of the first Cowboys Super Bowl team. And I talked to him at length for the first book I wrote on the Cowboys called God's Coach. And Leroy told me, because he was the most durable player ever, he said to me, the harder you play, the healthier you stay. His point was, you can't tiptoe into a football game. You can't go in trying not to get hurt, or you will get hurt. It's such a violent game. You have to match the violence with your own violence. You have to go all out while going all in. So my 2 cents from a distance for Shedeur and Travis and Shiloh, your heart's in this, so play with your hearts. Just let it fly. Just go all out and be all in on giving it every last ounce you have for your father figure or your father Deion. Just go into it with all your emotions on your sleeve and say, this is it. God gave us this opportunity. let's close it out right against a very good BYU team. This is one of the best bowl game matchups there is. I can't wait to watch it, and I'm going to trust that everything's going to be just fine. I'll quote Deion, as he always says, God bless you all. Okay, I'm going to say it again. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. I said that with conviction, but I'm going to be honest with you. I have a confession. I'm really not saying it with the same conviction that I have all season long. That was my prediction before the season. I'm having some doubts at this point with 4 games to go in the season because both my Super Bowl teams have problems, maybe fatal problems. Okay, last offseason, I'm pretty sure I was the first to report this because I think I was the only one to report that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were having a big, bad problem that led to the Eagles' collapse last season. They were 10-1, and they lost their last 6 games and lost a playoff game at Tampa because of this big, bad problem between the quarterback and the star receiver. I did not detail what the problem is, though I have heard the gory details. They're just too personal for me to go public with. And I don't know the exact extent of exactly how it transpired, but I do know the impact of it on both players. Not a pretty sight. Same source told me later in the offseason, heading into this season, that they had sort of mended the fence, that they had forgiven each other if they hadn't forgotten. But now I'm starting to wonder if that's true, because even though the Eagles are on a roll, it's been more and more of a running roll, a run Saquon roll, because Jalen Hurts on Sunday in Philadelphia against those now upstart Panthers threw for a grand total of 108 yards. What, 108? Jalen Hurts. AJ caught 4 balls for 43, but a couple of times he looked incredibly frustrated with his quarterback. One time he showed up his quarterback on an overthrow. He threw up his hands like, what are you doing? Another time he went to the sidelines and threw his helmet in frustration. And after the game, when he was asked about it, what's the problem? He said, our passing game is the problem. Translation, our quarterback is the problem. A lethal comment. Can you fix it? He was asked. Well, we don't really communicate that well, so we can't fix it during the game. Uh-oh, you don't? Really? And then the Eagles' Brandon Graham, he's injured, but he's a leader. This is what he had to say publicly this week. And I quote, the person that's complaining needs to be accountable. That's AJ. I don't know the whole story, but I know that Jalen is trying and AJ could be a little better with how he responds to things. Thank you. Still quoting. They were friends before this, said Brandon Graham, but things have changed. Uh-oh. And I understand that because life happens, but it's the business side, and we have to make sure the personal doesn't get in the way of the business. Thank you, Brandon Graham. I cannot applaud those remarks enough because they are dead on correct. What's happening between Jalen and AJ again, because the old wound is festering again, could be lethal for the Eagles again. And the onus is on the receiver to stop it and shelf it and swallow it and forget about it and check it at the locker room door every single game day. Check it at the door. You guys are loaded. You have the best defense in pro football. You have a quarterback who just makes plays. He's not the most spectacular. He's not the best thrower of the football. He's not the quickest or fastest, but he can move. And he is strong of body and of soul. Extreme intangibles has Jalen Hurts. You have enough, A.J. Brown, to go win the Super Bowl. It's sitting right in your lap, but you've got to swallow your pride and your past with Jalen, and you've got to move forward. It's up to you to fix this. And I'll never forget what Michael Irvin, the great Cowboy receiver, has told me on many occasions back to the days I covered Michael's Cowboys team. It can never be the quarterback's fault. Michael was adamant about this. He never crossed Troy Aikman. If Troy spat back at him, complained, criticized a route that Michael ran or a drop, Michael said he just swallowed it because Troy is the quarterback. Troy's got the sugar in his hands. He decides where the sugar is going to be thrown. You can't cross the quarterback. You can't second guess the quarterback. You just have to swallow it. Let him be in a bad mood because you can't be. You play a dependent position called receiver. You're only as good as the quarterback makes you. It's up to you, AJ. You've got to stop this. You got to nip it in the bud before you go on one of those losing jags that derails your whole season, because you got problems enough, which brings me to my other problem that also involve the Ravens. As you know, I hate field goal kicking. It's gimmicky. It's silly. We let some little guy who can't play football run onto the field and decide games, big playoff games, by trying to boot a ball up between these weird, funny-looking uprights. What? What are we doing? I say abolish it. I like punting. It's strategic, but just go for it. Just make teams go for it and then go for two. We don't need field goal kicking, but we're stuck with it. It's exciting for all the wrong reasons, and it's gotten real scary exciting for both the Ravens and the Eagles. Because let's start with the Ravens. The GOAT kicker, Justin Tucker, he's lost it. I called for his job the other day because once field goal kickers lose it during the season, you can't get them back. They had a bye week. They should have replaced him, but no, they're going to ride with him because they've ridden with him so long, and he was the greatest until the last 2 years. But this year, he's really struggling, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. He's a grand total of 19 of 27 on the year, but here's the scary part. Outside of 40 yards, Justin Tucker, the quote-unquote GOAT, now that belongs to Brandon Aubrey, Justin Tucker outside the 40 is 9 of 17. 9 of 17? Killer. Season wrecker. If it comes down to a field goal, as you know it will in a playoff game, good night and good luck to the Baltimore Ravens. Not going to work. Justin Tucker is now 4 of 9 outside of 50 yards, which brings me back to the Eagles. Jake Elliott is 0 of 5 beyond 50 yards. In this day and age, 50-yard field goals are the equivalent of just kicking a can up the road. They might as well be extra points for my kicker, Brandon Aubrey. He just flicks them through from 55, 60, 65 like it's nothing. So the GOAT, Justin Tucker, is 4 of 9 outside 50, but Jake Elliott of the Eagles is 0 of 5 outside 50. That could be fatal. I don't like either situation, but I'm going to hang in. I'm going to hang on. Even though they'll probably kick me in the stomach, I'll say it again. The Eagles will beat the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Bear with me. This is a tricky topic, but I am going to plunge as usual. This is about God and football games. And just for the record, I believe in God with all my heart and soul. I grew up in the Methodist Church in Oklahoma City, and I attend a Methodist church out here in Los Angeles. I do regularly pray to God, pray for forgiveness, for strength, for direction. I'm flawed, I'm human, but I regularly ask God to use me for His good. I share this only to say that I'm not some atheist taking shots at Christians here. So here we go. The other night, I watched SMU stage a miraculous rally to tie that game. Then Clemson, I watched pull off an even more miraculous rally in the final 16 seconds with a long kickoff return and a 56-yard field goal to win the ACC championship game. Way to go, Clemson. And I watched Clemson coach Dabo Swinney and quarterback Cade Klubnik on live TV talk about God's plan for them winning that game. Believing in Jesus, walking with Jesus, trusting in Jesus. And once again, I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm not sure God decides football games. Just not sure of that. Now, I've thought about this a lot over the years. I'm just not sure about it. I definitely believe God works in mysterious ways, but did God decide that Dabo and Cade Klubnik were just going to win this game no matter what SMU did? Maybe. Hard for me to believe. Now, please understand, I do applaud Dabo and Cade for glorifying God, thanking God, for just sharing their faith on national TV very publicly, even though I'm sure a whole lot of non-believers out there were annoyed, even alienated to the point that they reached for the remote. But here's the question I've always asked myself when I hear athletes say, God made this victory possible. Are they suggesting nobody on the other team believes in God? Did Clemson pray longer and harder than SMU did before the game? Have Dabo and Cade been more faithful to the Lord than anyone associated with SMU football? Will God always favor the team that worships Him more? Man, I covered 3 Cowboys Super Bowl championship teams in the 1990s that featured way more hellraisers than God guys. But I don't know. Maybe a couple of Cowboys on those teams prayed harder during Super Bowl week than any single player on the Bills or the Steelers. So for the record, as God will attest, I have never once in my life prayed to win a game I was playing in or rooting for. Not once. I prayed only for the strength and the peace to play as well as I am capable of playing. And by the way, for the record, not once have I ever prayed for my Dallas Cowboys to win or any Cowboy to play great in any big game. I do believe in what Tim Tebow once told me, that he prayed before every game, and that was to be given the strength to handle winning or losing. Just the strength to handle it, whatever it was. Bingo. Love that. Now, obviously, some of us are born with more athletic ability and sheer size than others, and some of us are born with more heart, guts, desire, dedication. And those of us born that way figure out ways to overcome superior size and strength and talent, and prayer power can certainly help that. And I'll also give you this. If you truly believe it's God's plan for you to win, whether it is or not, whether that's true or not, that can certainly give you an advantage psychologically. So maybe that's what happened with Clemson Saturday night. Maybe the head coach and the quarterback made everyone in their locker room supremely believe that Syracuse rallying to knock off Miami, knocked them out of the championship game and Clemson right back into it, was God's plan. And that no matter how many plays SMU made, God would see to it that Clemson made one more play. Who knows? Maybe SMU actually has more true believers in God than Clemson does. Maybe SMU players actually prayed longer and harder than Clemson's, but that that Clemson players actually believed God was on their side, which gave them a supreme but irrational confidence with 16 seconds left. I don't know. It's just hard for me to believe God decides football games. But trust me on this. I do not doubt the power of the Almighty, sometimes mysterious power. Sometimes I look back on tough times I've battled through that led to something good. I've been blessed. And I sit back and I think, oh, that's why that happened. Thank you, God. So for me, in the end, the ultimate answer to whether God decides football games is God only knows. Take a quick sip. Breakfast of Champions, Nectar of the Gods, Diet Mountain Dew. Okay. I'm here to tell you that I first guessed this during the offseason. So I was on record during the offseason. It was very obvious to me during the offseason that Atlanta had one move to make and only one move. Baker Mayfield was a free agent. Baker Mayfield obviously had a bounce-back season the year before for the Tampa Bay Bucks, who had made the playoffs by stealing the NFC South. But Baker was free, and I thought, Arthur Blank, you guys in Atlanta, you've got such great young talent. You got Bijan, you got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London. Just go get Baker. He's free, and he'll be a relative bargain on the free agent market. And it's a 2-for-1 shot, a double jeopardy shot to Tampa, because if you sign Baker away from Tampa, they're stuck, man. They're in a lurch. They're not sure what they're going to do. I know this. I have several good sources in Tampa, one in particular who told me they were pretty much expecting Atlanta was going to come get Baker. And if so, they just have to go to plan B and figure it out. And you know what happened. I was dumbfounded by what I considered the dumbest move of the offseason, unless you want to consider Jerry doing nothing. But as far as moves go, the dumbest by far was the Atlanta Falcons giving Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed dollars. So let's call it 50 for this year and 50 for next year guaranteed. Baker then fell back to his plan B, re-signed with Tampa for 50 guaranteed million. So Kirk Cousins got $100 million guaranteed to Baker's $50 million guaranteed to stay in Tampa. Kirk makes 50 this year, 50 next year, while Baker averages 33 a year on his deal. What? What are you doing, Atlanta? I keep saying Kirk Cousins is 1-3 in the playoffs. He's won one playoff game in his whole life, and he's now on course. If he finishes this contract that he got from the Atlanta Falcons, he will be the third highest paid player in the history of pro football. What? That's behind Matt Stafford, who was the first pick in the draft, and Aaron Rodgers, who's won 4 MVPs. They're 1-2. Kirk, if he finishes his deal, will be the third highest paid player ever. And he, of course, was once a 4th-round draft pick by Washington. What? A 4th-rounder is going to be the third highest paid? What has he done to deserve that? He's 1-3 in the postseason. His overall starting quarterback record is 82-74 and 2 ties. So he's not much over 500 as a starting quarterback. And he got 50 and 50, $100 million guaranteed. What are we doing here? Aha. But then I stumbled upon the blinding fact that blinds the Arthur Blanks and the GMs of the NFL world again and again and again. Kirk Cousins. Here it is. In regular season yards passing per game, for his career. He's 10th all-time already. He's 10th all-time as Kirk Cousins in regular season passing yards per game. Think about that. They're blinded by that fact because I've said from day one, Kirk Cousins will always throw it to you, to the opponent, at the perfect time for you, the opponent. He'll always make the big mistake. It's why he's 1-3 in playoff games. It's why Dak Prescott and my Cowboys owned Kirk Cousins when he played in Washington. It's why my Cowboys, with backup quarterbacks 2 years in a row, in 21 and 22, I'm sorry, 20 and 21, 2 years in a row with backup quarterbacks, my Cowboys beat Kirk Cousins in big games up in Minnesota with Andy Dalton and Cooper Rush or Hush. Seriously? They did that twice in a row. That's vintage classic Kirk Cousins. I always say he looks like a scarecrow in the pocket, even though he's actually almost 6'3" and weighs 215. He plays little and his helmet looks like it's way too big for his head. But he's a great guy. I have no doubt. He's a God-fearing, he's a Christian. He wears the goofy chains. Then he does the silly dance that he does for Falcon fans, and they skyrocket to 6-3 earlier this year. And they did beat Tampa twice. I give you that. Barely. They beat them twice. And now the Atlanta Falcons, right on schedule, right on time, very predictably, have lost 4 straight games. And in their losing streak, Kirk Cousins has thrown 0 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in this 4-game losing streak. 0 to 8 is Kirk Cousins. And you gave him 50 plus 50, 100 million guaranteed, and he turned right back, right on schedule, into Kirk Cousins. His 15 interceptions so far this year lead the league. His 17 giveaways, counting 2 lost fumbles, lead the league. Kirk Cousins has turned back into, remember when the GM in Washington, Bruce Allen, called him Kurt Cousins by accident. I don't know if he did that on purpose just to disrespect him, but he's Kurt Cousins now, not Kirk Cousins. Baker Mayfield still is, he still throws too many picks. He's second in interceptions and second in giveaways, but he's 28 touchdowns as Baker to 13 interceptions. That will get it done. Baker Mayfield is an underrated leader. Somehow he got a terrible reputation because he and Odell clashed, even though they were good friends. They had vacationed together, but in Cleveland, it fell all apart. And all the Odell supporters and defenders in the media said it's Baker's fault. And Baker can come off as a bit of a jerk sometimes, to use the word of the Tampa Bay GM. He can be a little bit of a dick sometimes, but in a good way, because the players around him like that. He's a spit in your eye guy. He won't take any crap, and he'll give you, if you want to trash talk, he'll trash talk back. Players respond to that. I think players love Baker Mayfield. He's changed the culture in Tampa post-Brady. They're now a bunch of overachieving battlers. And remember, Baker was a 2-time walk-on player at Texas Tech and then at Oklahoma, where he won the Heisman after walking on. He was the first pick in the draft, but he's better overachieving when nobody expects him to. And look at him now. Look what's happened. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 7-6 and atop the NFC South yet again. Atlanta has fallen to 6-7. And I ask you, Falcon fans, you like that? I do, but I'm a Baker fan. I'm sorry, but I'm going to close with updating the shooting stats for poor Bronny James. I love this kid. I just don't love the way he's shooting the basketball, because if you think his dad is struggling shooting, Lord have mercy on Bronny James. So since Bronny was drafted by the Lakers, Summer League, G League, NBA games, he is now shooting the basketball at these clips. He's 25 of 82 just from the floor. 25 of 82, that's 30%. And from three, so far as a pro in those three leagues, Summer, G, and NBA, he's a combined 3 of 33 from three. 3 of 33, that's 9% from three. He was 3 of 19. He made all three of his threes in Summer League. 3 of 19 from three in Summer League. He's now 0 of 14 from three in the G League. 0 of 14 in the G League. And I'm sorry, that's also the NBA. G League and NBA is 0 for, he's 0 for 10 in the G League and 0 for 4 in the NBA. Okay. A combined 0 for 14 this basketball season, G and NBA combined. Well, I mean, that's indefensible. That's just scary bad. And he's such a great kid. They raised him so right that I keep hoping against hope that this is just a prolonged slump. But the truth is, the God's truth is, Bronny's been slumping from three since he stepped on the floor at USC. Now, he had the heart condition, God bless him, I'm knocking on wood for him, that delayed the start of his USC season. But once he got going and once he seemed to be okay, he shot 27% from three in college basketball with the slightly closer line. So the slump has continued now for 2 years. And I'm just hoping it's just prolonged, that he's going to snap out of it at some point. But I'm here to tell you, straight from the heart, that I'm starting to think that the kid just can't. No, I can't go there. I'm sorry. I'm still so depressed about my Dallas Cowboys. I can't even let my mind go there with Bronny James. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Tyler Korn for producing, to Ernestine for overseeing, and of course to Hazel for approving.